Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling strangely unsettled, doubting yourself, or replaying every word in your head, even though nothing openly negative happened? That feeling is not random. It's often the result of subtle psychological mind games people play every day, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously. These games don't look dramatic. They're quiet, indirect, and easy to miss, which is exactly why they work so well. Human beings play mind games for one simple reason: control. Not always control over others, but control over how they're seen, how they're treated, or how safe they feel emotionally. When people don't know how to communicate their needs directly, they resort to psychological shortcuts. Silence becomes a weapon. Confusion becomes leverage. Emotional reactions become tools. One of the most common mind games is emotional ambiguity. Someone says one thing, then behaves in a completely different way. They give attention, then pull it away. They make you feel valued, then suddenly distant. Your brain hates uncertainty, so it starts searching for answers. You replay conversations, analyze tone, and blame yourself for things you didn't even do. The mind game works not because the other person is powerful, but because your brain is trying to restore clarity. Another powerful tactic is guilt shifting. This happens when someone subtly makes you feel responsible for their emotions. They don't say it directly. Instead, they sigh, withdraw, or say things like, "It's fine, don't worry about it," while clearly wanting you to worry about it. Your brain responds by trying to fix the emotional tension. Over time, you start prioritizing their comfort over your own clarity. Most psychological mind games begin very subtly, which is why people often don't notice them until they're already emotionally affected. These games usually don't involve shouting, threats, or direct control. Instead, they work through silence, timing, tone, and emotional pressure. The human brain is extremely sensitive to social cues, and mind games take advantage of that sensitivity. When something feels off but isn't openly explained, your brain tries to fill in the blanks, and that's where manipulation starts to work. One common reason people play mind games is insecurity. When someone feels unsure about their value, position, or control in a relationship, they may try to regain power indirectly. Instead of asking for reassurance or expressing needs clearly, they create emotional imbalance. This could mean suddenly withdrawing attention, acting distant without explanation, or changing behavior in ways that confuse the other person. Confusion keeps the other person emotionally engaged, constantly thinking and seeking clarity. Another psychological mechanism behind mind games is the fear of vulnerability. Being honest requires emotional risk. Mind games allow people to influence situations without exposing their true feelings. For example, instead of saying, "I feel ignored," someone might use passive-aggressive comments or silence to provoke guilt. The goal is not communication, it's control without accountability. Our brains are wired to seek patterns and predict outcomes. When someone behaves inconsistently, the brain becomes alert. It scans past conversations, analyzes expressions, and searches for meaning. This mental effort creates emotional exhaustion, making the person more suggestible and self-critical. Over time, they may start adjusting their behavior just to avoid discomfort, even when they haven't done anything wrong. Mind games are especially powerful in environments where power dynamics already exist: workplaces, romantic relationships, friendships with imbalance, or online spaces. When one person controls information, approval, or emotional validation, subtle manipulation becomes easier. The brain naturally wants acceptance, so it tolerates confusion longer than it should. It's important to understand that mind games don't require intelligence or planning. Many people repeat behaviors they learned growing up or observed in others. That's why these patterns feel familiar across different relationships. The danger isn't the game itself, it's how long someone stays unaware of it. Awareness doesn't mean confrontation. In fact, reacting emotionally often strengthens the game. Calm observation weakens it. When you stop trying to decode every signal and instead focus on consistency, your emotional balance returns. Mind games depend on reaction. Without reaction, they lose energy. This awareness stage is where control begins to shift. Not outward control, but internal control. You stop chasing explanations and start trusting patterns. And once you do that, the psychological grip slowly loosens. Then there's gaslighting, one of the most damaging mind games. This is when someone slowly makes you doubt your own perception of reality. They deny things they said, minimize your feelings, or tell you that you're overreacting. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to destabilize your confidence. Once you stop trusting your own judgment, you become easier to influence. What makes these mind games so effective is that they target basic psychological needs: safety, belonging, and certainty. The brain would rather blame itself than accept emotional unpredictability from others. That's why people often stay stuck in these patterns longer than they should. But here's the shift that changes everything. Mind games lose their power the moment they are seen clearly. Awareness interrupts emotional autopilot. When you recognize patterns instead of reacting to feelings, the dynamic changes. You stop chasing clarity from people who thrive on confusion. This doesn't mean becoming cold or suspicious of everyone. It means staying grounded in your own perception. Asking yourself simple questions like, do their words match their actions? Or do I feel calmer or more anxious after interacting with them? Your nervous system often knows the truth before your mind does. Another important realization is that not everyone who plays mind games is malicious. Many people learned these behaviors early in life as survival strategies. Understanding this helps you detach emotionally instead of taking everything personally. Compassion creates clarity, but boundaries create safety. When you stop reacting emotionally, mind games naturally collapse. Silence loses its power when you don't chase it. Guilt loses its grip when you don't accept responsibility for emotions that aren't yours. Confusion fades when you trust patterns more than promises. The strongest psychological position isn't dominancy, self-trust. When you're calm, observant, and emotionally regulated, manipulation has nothing to attach to. And once you reach that state, interactions stop draining you. They become information instead of emotional battles. The goal is not to outplay people. The goal is to stop playing games altogether. Because the moment you understand how these mind games work, you stop being a participant, and that's real power.